It is known that by far the strongest shinobi in any village has always been the Kage. For the leaf, that's the Hokage. But the question is, which Hokage was the strongest? There's been 7.5 Hokage, counting Danzo as he was interim. So today I wish to look over each individual Kage and rank them one by who I think would be the strongest.
Welcome to the Amagi! Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Also, we just released some brand new merch. If you'd like to show your support for the channel even further while at the same time repping stylish clothing, be sure to check that out as well. The store is linked below. YouTube's been unsubscribing users from channels lately, so if you're a fan of us, please do us a favor and double check to see if you're still subscribed. It only takes a second, and it helps us a ton here at Amagi. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video.
Now, before I begin, I really want you guys to realize that this is by no means a definite list. And just because my list may be a little different than yours doesn't invalidate either of them. It's just my own personal opinion. And of course, I invite discussion in the comments as to who you think the strongest is, and where you think my list may have gone wrong. But I only invite it if you can be respectful of your fellow commenters. After all, this really is just for fun, and we need to acknowledge that each person's views, while different, are equally valid. So now that we've gotten through this, let's get into it. Number 8. Hiruzen Sarutobi. Hiruzen Sarutobi was among the first shinobi to ever graduate from the academy in Konohagakure. He was, along with Homura Mitokado and Koharu Utatane, placed under Tobirama Senju, who taught them what it was to be a shinobi. These three would eventually become the Konoha Council during the age of Minato Namikaze's tenure as Hokage. Hiruzen Sarutobi was skilled and even received extra training from Hashirama himself. Alongside the others, he served in the First Shinobi World War. It was during this war that Hashirama Senju lost his life. When that happened, Tobirama was forced into the position of Hokage, where he held it for an insanely short time. Tobirama was only a Kage for a short period until he and the rest of his group were cornered by the Kinkaku Force, a special squad of shinobi led by Kinkaku of the Gold and Silver Brothers. At this time, Hiruzen was part of a team consisting of his mentor Tobirama, Danzo Shimura, Homura, Koharu, Kagami Uchiha, and Torifu Akimichi. Their team was surrounded by the enemy, which led to a discussion on how to get out of the situation. It was eventually determined that there was no other way out besides a distraction, which would ultimately lead to the death of whoever went out there. Danzo was a bit too afraid to volunteer for the task, but when Hiruzen volunteered, Danzo grew resentful of him for trying to be a hero. In the end, Tobirama decided that he himself would provide the distraction and allow his team to escape. However, before going into battle, he passed down the role of Hokage to Hiruzen, making him the third Hokage, a choice Danzo also resented. In the end, they also managed to escape, and Tobirama lost his life. Hiruzen became the third Hokage, and is still considered the longest reigning Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Hiruzen would go on to lead the village during the Second and Third Shinobi World Wars, in which he saw many people die. These deaths struck close to home, such as Don Kato and Nawaki, both of whom were close with Tsunade Senju, the daughter and grandniece of his predecessors. Hiruzen's heart was big, but his brain was small, and so, as the Third Shinobi World War dragged on, he elected to end it with a peace treaty. This was considered foolish by the Konoha Council, especially Danzo, who, voicing his opinion of the other villagers, essentially bullied Hiruzen into retirement. Hiruzen wished for Jiraiya to take his place, but Jiraiya refused as it wasn't his style. He wanted Orochimaru as well, but Orochimaru was not a good fit due to the growing darkness in his heart. As for Tsunade, well, she wasn't available either. So Hiruzen boiled it down to Fugaku Uchiha and Minato Namikaze. He chose Minato in the end, which struck a blow to the Uchiha's pride and their confidence in the village. However, upon the untimely death of Minato, Hiruzen returned to office until a proper replacement could be found and held office for another 12 years. During this time, he was subject to many scandals, such as the Hyuga affair, in which the Hyuga narrowly avoided the Fourth Shinobi World War via a blood sacrifice, and the Uchiha downfall, in which the Uchiha were ultimately killed under orders of Danzo Shimura. After this incident, Hiruzen had Danzo put under house arrest and disbanded Root, but this was not the end of troubles, as Orochimaru fled the village after being discovered by Hiruzen, who spared him out of sentimentality. This would eventually bite him in the rear, as Orochimaru would form the terrorist state of Otogakure, which would later lead to Hiruzen's death. During the climax of the Fourth Shinobi World War, Hiruzen would return to life to help defeat Madara, where he would offer great help and knowledge befitting only a Kage. Now, Hiruzen was an intelligent man, there's no two ways about it. He was brave as well, but his confidence was always at rock bottom. Even as a Kage, he never believed he measured up to his predecessors or even his successors, and was always one who failed to ever add anything greater to the village. His only concern was keeping it afloat, to which he never excelled at anything, bringing Konoha into a stage of stagnation. He had a variety of different jutsu to the point that he was named the professor by others near him. However, he had low chakra, which meant he would tire out faster, which only got worse with old age. In the end, when it boils down to his policies and abilities, I would say that he was a skilled shinobi worthy of his post, but failed to believe that, and instead became a seat warmer, and a very kind elderly man who lacked any form of ambition at all. I promise I'm not trying to be biased, I just sort of feel like this about him. He was a nice guy, but as a leader, he sucked. Number 7. Tsunade. Tsunade was the granddaughter of Hashirama Senju, of which she was often spoiled. She loved to gamble and make money even as a child. These were vices that she inherited from her grandfather. Tsunade also possessed her grandfather's chakra reserves, which made her very powerful. She was also intelligent and well-renowned as perhaps the greatest medical nin in the world. During the Second Shinobi World War, she eventually lost her little brother, Nawaki, who she had gifted her grandfather's necklace to after he declared his dream of becoming Hokage. Not long after getting this necklace, he died in battle, cutting his dreams and life short. This affected Tsunade deeply, but she kept going. Eventually, she fell in love with a young man named Don Kato, who, much like her brother, showed interest in becoming the Hokage and protecting the world from war. To that end, she gifted him her grandfather's necklace as well, which he gratefully accepted. However, much like her brother before her, he also died, ending up mortally wounded, bleeding out in her arms. This death was so brutal that even Orochimaru shed tears at how unfair Tsunade's fate was treating her. This led to Tsunade developing hemophobia, which is a fear of blood. This caused Tsunade to petition the Hidden Leaf to include at least one medical nin in every team, as she believed that had one been there on the teams of Nawaki and Don, that maybe they would not have died. As a shinobi, she was a skilled medical nin who developed many techniques, including creation rebirth. She also possessed the ability to develop antivenoms and cures to poisons, to which Tsunagakure's greatest puppeteer and poison specialist Chiyo cursed her for, calling her the Slug Princess. At some point in time, she was with Jiraiya and Orochimaru in Amegakure to fight against the forces of Hanzo of the Salamander. Hanzo was a powerful shinobi who believed himself superior to everyone else. However, he began to believe that Konoha would win the battle and decided to retreat, opting to spare the 3 shinobi of which he named the Sanin due to their feat of surviving him. It was this feat that also drove the Ame orphans, Nagato, Yahiko, and Konin to their group. Tsunade was skeptical, but Jiraiya would take these orphans upon him to train, telling his team to return to Konoha without him. At some point in time, Tsunade met the 4th Raikage and just barely lost an arm wrestling contest with him after he asked her to perform a surgery to remove an exploding insect from his subordinate. Tsunade complied, but also stated that a similar insect was inside of A, so she had Shizune remove them both due to her hemophobia. She would eventually go off and live in seclusion, spending most of her time drinking and gambling. That was until Naruto and Jiraiya appeared to offer her the job of 5th Hokage after the death of Hiruzen. She believed it to be a fool's job and refused. However, after witnessing Naruto's growth and conviction, she decided to take the job, which she held until pain attacked the village and left her in a coma. Even after her tenure, though, she served Konoha as a valuable general and essentially their surgeon general, teaching the next generation. Tsunade was a rough woman, taking upon herself all of the vices of her grandfather to a greater degree. She was a wonderful medical ninja and a pioneer in her field. She invented the 4 rules of being a medical nin. The rules were: 1. No medic ninja shall ever stop medical treatment until the lives of their party members have come to an end. 2. No medic ninja shall ever stand on the front lines. 3. No medic ninja shall ever die until they are the last of their platoon. 4. Only those medic ninja who have mastered the strength of 100 technique of the ninja art creation rebirth are permitted to discard the above-mentioned laws. However, despite this, she possessed hemophobia, which sort of makes it hard for her to operate on others, which is why she focused more upon teaching. As for her skill in jutsu, Tsunade doesn't display too many ninjutsu, and instead focuses primarily on physical strength, attributed to her by her incredible chakra reserves and her strength of 100 seal. She was wise and intelligent and led Konoha through many crises. The reason why I rank her so low is that she's heavily hampered by personal issues and a lack of variety in skill set. While she is far from weak, she doesn't possess many jutsu, has hemophobia, which is debilitating for a field medic, and has so many vices that she truly needs to rise above herself to even hold the office. Number 6. Kakashi Hatake. Kakashi was the son of the White Fang of the Leaf. He was always prideful and judgmental of Might Guy, who couldn't use ninjutsu very well, and so resorted to taijutsu much like his father Might Dai. However, Kakashi's father cautioned him that because of Guy's hard work, he may one day be a greater shinobi than even Kakashi, something Kakashi was skeptical of. Kakashi always had a strong sense of morality and the desire to protect his friends. However, he was forever scarred by his father's suicide. Sakamoto Hatake had been the leader of a squad during the Second Shinobi World War. When a choice to save his friends over completing his mission resulted in a great loss for Konoha, he was scorned by many in his village, to which it's believed that Kakashi's use of a mask to cover his face was due to the shame of what his father had done. In an attempt to spare Kakashi of the pain of living with a tainted name, Sakamoto committed harakiri to restore honor to their name, though this resulted in Kakashi being traumatized. After this, Kakashi's nindo of protecting everyone no matter what became always do everything by the book. To that end, he came to be known as a bit of a hard ass, and no team he was ever on seemed interested in keeping him on their team. He was eventually assigned to Team Minato, who hoped to teach him the value of teamwork. The goal was to get all of his students to work together to claim the bells. However, Kakashi's interpretation was more to use them to get the bells. Minato passed him anyway, as he would eventually learn what teamwork was. Kakashi would go on to enter a one-sided rivalry with Obito Uchiha, who, despite not being as skilled, possessed great passion. Obito would fail to become a Chunin on the day Kakashi becomes one, and on the day that Obito becomes a Chunin officially, Kakashi laps him and becomes a Jonin, leading to feelings of bitterness and jealousy from the young Uchiha. During the Third Shinobi World War, Kakashi would take control of a mission to destroy the Kanabi Bridge. During this mission, Rin is captured. It's Kakashi's decision to leave her behind as his father failed to do so before. However, Obito abandons his mission to save her, and eventually Kakashi's conscience catches up with him, and he would rush off to save them. This results in Kakashi losing an eye. However, they succeed in saving Rin despite the loss of Obito's life. Kakashi would have Obito's Sharingan transplanted to replace his eye under the request of Obito on his deathbed. He would use this to help complete his mission. Eventually, when Rin is captured again, she dives in front of Kakashi's Chidori to save Konoha from the three tails sealed inside of her. This causes Kakashi's eye to evolve into a Mangekyo Sharingan. He is scarred for life from this and enters the Anbu Black Ops, where he worked for a good amount of time. He worked for Root for a time after the Nine Tails attack when his belief in Hiruzen faltered. He would later leave the group when Itachi slaughtered the Uchiha, instead choosing to become a mentor. He would go on to train Team 7 and eventually take his place as Hokage after the death of Danzo Shimura. Kakashi is no doubt a wise and powerful shinobi. While he does possess lower chakra reserves, his reserves are seen steadily increasing through the series, as he goes from barely being able to utilize his base Sharingan to spamming his Mangekyo during the war. He is chill and laid back, which provides a cool under pressure mentality, allowing him to make balanced decisions. His Sharingan allows him to copy the jutsu of others, leading to his nickname the Copy Ninja. He was brave and powerful, especially when he possessed the double Mangekyo Sharingan for a time. He invented the Chidori when he attempted to add lightning nature to a Rasengan. This ability could only be used by one with a Sharingan though, due to the speed which caused tunnel vision. However, even after losing his Sharingan, he is shown to remain resourceful, which allowed him to invent his new signature purple lightning technique, which was essentially the Chidori, but without the speed that created tunnel vision. By the time the series begins, he's already dealt with most of his emotional baggage, and by the time the series ends, he acknowledges Obito's fall and sacrifice. Essentially, Kakashi is just a better version of Hiruzen, which is why he ended up on this place in the list. Number 5. Danzo Shimura. Don't stone me. Danzo was a crappy person, no two ways about it, but as Hokage he did have some merit. So let's look at this. Danzo shares much of the same backstory as Hiruzen, serving as the Sasuke to Hiruzen's Naruto. Danzo was a jealous man who was always searching for a way to step in and become Hokage. To that point, he did many traitorous things, including teaming up with Hanzo to destroy the Akatsuki in an attempt to further his own agenda. He would use Orochimaru's experiments to get an arm formed of Hashirama Senju's cells and fill them with Sharingan. Danzo was the definition of bastard. He would attempt to turn Kakashi against Hiruzen in an attempt to assassinate Hiruzen. However, this came to light when Kakashi betrayed him and informed Hiruzen of everything. Kakashi would then be attacked by Kinoue, who later ended up being known as Yamato. When the rumors of the Uchiha uprising were swirling around, he would corner and steal the eye of Shisui Uchiha for himself, essentially guaranteeing that the only chance Itachi and Shisui had to stop the Uchiha was gone. This eventually leads to Shisui ending his own life. After plucking his last eye out and giving it to Itachi, Shisui throws himself into the Naka River and drowns. Itachi would use that eye for his crow, which would eventually be given to Naruto. Danzo then manipulates Itachi into killing his is short, as when the 5 Kage summit is called in the Land of Iron, it's crashed by Sasuke, who has a score to settle with Danzo. On his attempt to escape though, he is confronted by Sasuke, who manages to kill him, but only after barely surviving his Izanagi spam. In the end, he holds Karin hostage in an attempt to escape, but Sasuke, not caring about Karin, stabs him to death through her. On the verge of dying a coward, Danzo makes the final decision to use a special seal to seal Sasuke into his body upon death, a seal that Sasuke barely avoids. Danzo was not a good man. He was deceitful, cruel, and an opportunist. He was power-hungry and ambitious. All of these qualities make for a terrible human, but a damn good shinobi. Danzo was an expert in manipulating the system and those around him to get what he wants. Disregarding the moral side of things, Danzo Shimura knew how to survive and get power. He was a master of wind-style chakra, which he used alongside his kunai to form blades made of air. He possessed the Mangekyou Sharingan of Shisui Uchiha, which allowed him use of the Koro Amatsukami, a genjutsu so subtle that one couldn't even tell that they'd been under genjutsu. But by far his most impressive abilities were those attached to his right arm. He had within his arm the cells of Hashirama Senju, which granted him a form of wood release, one of the most rare Kekai Genkai in the world. And thanks to his plethora of Sharingan, he was capable of denying fate through the spam of Izanagi. So long as he still had Sharingan, he was immortal in battle. The best you could do was force him to use it or outlast him. Sasuke himself would have died had it not been for Karin. All these things together make a very powerful shinobi. If I were to say one thing though, he was very unlucky when it came to subtlety, as he was always caught off guard by someone else revealing his plans. Whether this was because he was uncareful, unlucky, or simply flagrant in his attempts to usurp power is unknown, but that's why he has this spot. He saw the world as it was, and had a heart as dark as the shinobi world. In fact, this man was the embodiment of the concepts of the shinobi world, killing without regard for only power. A true bastard indeed. And a true shinobi. Still don't like him though. Number 4. Tobirama Senju. Tobirama Senju was born during the Warring States period alongside Hashirama Senju and his 2 brothers, Itama and Kawarama. He was the second born of Butsuma and was a powerful shinobi in his own right. When Itama and Kawarama were killed, he and Hashirama entertained the concept of a peaceful world, though such a thing seemed too impossible for Tobirama. As Hashirama seemed to be disappearing and spending more and more time away from home, Tobirama's father would send him to spy on his brother. This would lead to the discovery that Hashirama was meeting with another boy his age named Madara. Butsuma and Tobirama would set a trap for Madara, unaware that Madara's father, Tajima, and brother Izuna were doing the same thing for Hashirama. Upon discovery of this fact, Hashirama cried out to Madara that they would still end it, but Madara had already given up on this and vowed to kill Hashirama when they next met in battle. Eventually, as time passed, Tobirama and Hashirama would begin facing off more and more with Madara and Izuna. Tobirama would manage to wound Izuna, a wound which led to Izuna's death later on. Slowly, the war began to turn in the Senju's favor. On many occasions, Hashirama and Tobirama found themselves standing above Madara, ready to kill him, but due to Hashirama's soft heart, he would often let Madara go. Eventually, when the war was coming to a close and all that was left was a stubborn Madara, Hashirama consented to killing himself to bring peace, which touched Madara deeply. After this, they would go on to found the village hidden in the leaves. Hashirama wanted Madara to be Hokage, but Tobirama stated that it should be held democratically for the first and only time, to which the people chose Hashirama. Hashirama would promise this position to Madara after his term, but Madara believed in his heart that the position would fall to Tobirama instead, which, of course, it did. Eventually, Madara betrayed the village and attempted to destroy it, but was killed by Hashirama. Tobirama would eventually take the body and study it to learn the secrets of the Sharingan, though he would bury it later, unaware that Izanagi had been cast on it to revive Madara. Tobirama was a scientist at heart and would eventually come to pioneer many new techniques, such as the Shadow Clone Jutsu, Flying Raijin, and even the Impure World Reincarnation Jutsu. It's because of these things that Tobirama remains Orochimaru's favorite Hokage. Tobirama would continue to help his brother run the village, giving advice to him during the first 5 Kage Summit. When Hashirama planned to give away each of the tailed beasts, Tobirama stepped in and caused Hashirama to propose the other villages buy the beasts instead. Tobirama would also go on to mentor the next generation, and eventually take up the mantle of second Hokage after the death of his brother. His term was short though, and he died heroically in battle. This isn't quite the end though, as Tobirama would, along with his brother, be revived via Edo Tensei during the Konoha Crush, where they would be sealed away with the Reaper Death Seal. They'd eventually emerge and help fight in the 4th Shinobi World War, where they would eventually know peace afterwards. Tobirama was a stern man who valued logic over sentimentality. He was cold and calculating, though this didn't mean he didn't have a heart. Bro had a touch of mad scientist in him though, and he wasn't above trying to revive the dead to use as weapons against his enemies. About half of the forbidden jutsu in the Scroll of Seals are probably his. While he was a guy who possessed incredible talent and imagination, he was also kind to his allies, as was shown when he mentored Hiruzen and his team. He also had honor when he wasn't playing with dead bodies, in so much as he decided to die for his team and let them get away. Of course, it could have been a touch of pride and arrogance, as he probably believed that if any of their team could survive the Kinkaku Force, it would be him. But I can't really confirm that. Due to his imagination, I rank him this high on the list. Number 3. Minato Namikaze. We don't know where he comes from, as he is not witnessed as ever having any family. We do know he was a prodigy though, and that his skills were enough to earn him his place as Hokage. He was but a child when he met his soon-to-be wife Kushina Uzumaki. She was always bullied, but before he could step in to defend her, she always tended to liberate herself with her incredible strength. However, a time came when her strength failed her, and she was abused by an older shinobi. It was then that Minato would rescue her. But nothing stole her heart more than when she was kidnapped by Kumonin and eventually rescued by Minato. From there, Kushina saw him in a different light, and the two began to date. Minato was apparently the star of Jiraiya's group, as Kishimoto didn't even bother to give the other two shinobi names. Minato would go on to create the Rasengan after witnessing a tailed beast ball, and would teach it to his master. Something difficult enough to force it into a Class A Jutsu designation which only skilled shinobi were capable of learning. He went on many missions, such as one to the Desert Kingdom of Roran, where he would eventually meet the time-traveling Naruto Uzumaki, who he would recognize. He eventually became the mentor of his very own team, consisting of Rin Nohara, Obito Uchiha, and Kakashi Hatake. His team was one with incredible ability, as Kakashi quickly gained Jonin at a very young age. During the 3rd Shinobi World War, Minato would give over command of the Kanami Bridge mission to Kakashi after being sent to the front lines, where he would proceed to decimate practically an entire army by himself. He would also eventually encounter A and Killer B in battle, both renowned for their speed, but Minato would be even faster. This led to him being titled the Leaf's Yellow Flash. He would eventually return to save Kakashi and Rin after the death of Obito, and would go on to help them complete their mission. Minato was eventually named Hokage, and comes to learn that his wife is pregnant with their first child, which she's already pegged for gender and dreams. Seeing how upset Kakashi was, he ordered his former student to guard Kushina in hopes that it would instill in him a sense of how precious life was. However, as she went into labor, he was forced to keep her seal closed to keep the Ninetales from escaping. When Naruto was born, he would hardly have time to breathe, as Kushina was taken by a masked man. Minato, after putting the baby somewhere safe, would rush to retrieve her. However, she had lost her tailed beast and was dying. He would go off to face the masked man and free Kurama from his grip, but it was too late by this time, and Kushina's demise was inevitable. So he used the Reaper Death Seal to seal the beast away into his child, with a piece of his own chakra to protect the seal, before having his own soul devoured by the Reaper alongside the yin half of the Ninetales. He would eventually be freed during the 4th Shinobi World War, where he would get to fight alongside his child again, before transferring the yin half of Kurama into him to save his life. After the battle's end, he would finally go to the afterlife to be with Kushina. Minato was a skilled shinobi, known for his speed and creativity. The guy possessed the Flying Raijin Jutsu, which was invented by Tobirama. However, he ranks above Tobirama in its usage, as even Tobirama mentions during the 4th Shinobi World War. Minato was also known for his creativity, much like Tobirama. However, his techniques were developed in a much purer and more peaceful way. He developed his own A-class move called the Rasengan. Minato would eventually go on to create many other techniques, which were stated to be of such outlandish names that they were too complicated to repeat. Despite being a short-lived Hokage, he is believed to be one of the strongest, even to the point that when Hashirama and Tobirama were revived, Hiruzen didn't care. But when Minato's coffin was raised by Orochimaru, Hiruzen began to panic. That's partly the reason why I'm a little hesitant to put him behind the next on the list, as he was hyped up so much. Number 2. Hashirama Senju. Hashirama Senju was the firstborn son of Butsuma and the eldest of 4 children. He shares the same history as Tobirama does, though he experienced a few things Tobirama never did. Hashirama was present for the deaths of both Itama and Kawarama. When Kawarama died, Hashirama was bitter and believed that the war they were fighting with the Uchiha was useless. This led to an altercation with his father in which Butsuma struck Hashirama. This never changed Hashirama's opinion though, as the boy would go on to speak with his brothers about the need to end the tit-for-tat nature of this war. Nobody even knew why the war was still going other than an endless cycle of vengeance, to which, unless someone swallowed their pain, would never end. His brother, Itama, loved the sea, but sadly never got to see it, as in battle he was surrounded by large Uchiha warriors and mercilessly killed without a second thought. Hashirama would be the one to discover the body of Itama and would merely cradle his dead brother as he cried to the heavens. This was something Hashirama never recovered from. During the time he was lamenting, he would discover Madara Uchiha by a river and the two would talk. Hashirama would mention that he lost 2 of his brothers. Madara would welcome him to his world by mentioning that he had lost 3 of his little brothers. Yeah, come back when you have a real story, Hashirama. The two grew to become close friends. These were the only times either had to actually be kids, as they were elsewhere always facing death with little to no downtime. They made it a rule to always hide their clan name for fear that the other was an enemy that they would need to kill via duty. So they merely called each other Hashirama and Madara. Eventually, the boys' parents grew suspicious and spied on them to discover the truth. Their families would set a trap for the other and a battle was started over their little meetings. Hashirama held out hope, but Madara gave up and developed his Sharingan, vowing to kill Hashirama if he ever saw him again. Eventually, both Tajima and Butsuma would die, and Hashirama and Madara were thrown into the position of clan head. The war would drag on until eventually Hashirama's suicide attempt was enough to convince Madara to agree to peace. Together, the two founded Konoha. Hashirama would eventually go on to meet a girl named Mito Uzumaki who would bear him his children. At some point though, Madara quit believing and attempted to destroy the Hidden Leaf with the Nine Tails. The battle went on for days until Madara was too tired to even use his Sharingan. It was then that Hashirama dealt the fatal blow and killed him. He would go on to seal the Nine Tails into his wife. After this, he goes on to search for the other tailed beasts, which he uses as bargaining chips to help foster peace, though this eventually backfired on him. At some point, Kakazu from Takigakure, a village that would later come to be home to the Seven Tails, would attempt to assassinate Hashirama, though this fails. Hashirama managed to live long enough to train the next generation of shinobi and even spoil his granddaughter Tsunade, who seemed to display all of his vices in spades. Sadly, he would die in battle and the title would pass on to his brother, Tobirama. He would later be revived during the Konoha Crush and later during the Fourth Shinobi World War, where his descriptions of what makes a shinobi was enough to change Sasuke's mind and ambitions and convince him to help them defeat the Ten Tails. Hashirama's abilities are incredible. He has both Senju-level chakra wells as well as Ashura reincarnate chakra well deepness. But beyond that, he possesses wood release like his predecessor Ashura. Wood release is only the most overhyped nature transformation in all of Naruto, and it possesses the ability to create massive constructs that would rival a fully powered Nine Tails coated in the armor of a perfect Susanoo. And did I mention that wood release can subdue tailed beasts too? Yeah. Hashirama subdued a lot of them and sold them auction style to the other nations. But beyond even all of this, he possessed a regenerative factor that would make Wolverine piss himself. Not only could he regrow limbs, but he could also have his cells used to fix people up and repair bodies, such as the case with Obito. It also seems that his cells can be used to defeat the effects of the Mangekyo Sharingan's blinding from overuse. And since he is the Ashura reincarnate, he is half of what is required to awaken Six Paths Chakra, which further awakens the Rinnegan. I dare say that there is nobody stronger than Hashirama in the Naruto Shippuden series. Well, nobody but one. Number 1. Naruto Uzumaki. What did you expect from the main protagonist of the series? Naruto may not have been too impressive to start with, but he quickly grew stronger to the point that he surpasses all other Kage. His mastery of Sage Mode and his near infinite well of chakra has he and Sasuke both go all night in battle the same way Hashirama and Madara did, fighting for 24 hours straight before passing out. But that's before we count in their growth during the Boruto series. Naruto possesses 6-path Sage Mode, and was capable of using the creation of all things technique to heal Might Guy and even seal away Kaguya Otsutsuki. Indeed, he lost an arm at the end of the Naruto series, but he had it replaced with one made of Hashirama Senju's cells, and just so you know, that doesn't make him weaker. In fact, it makes him stronger, as it now has an increased regenerative factor that is boosted further by Kurama's chakra, and even has potential to use wood release. But shall we continue on to say that perhaps the strongest thing about him is his personality? He possesses a drive unlike any Kage before him. He doesn't take no for an answer, at least not on big things. He also uses this drive to become strong, working himself into a fit. This can also be a great downfall to him, as when he hits a wall he can't overcome, he takes it personally and lets it eat away at him, the same way that he had a panic attack when the Raikage refused to pardon Sasuke. But he also bounces back, deciding that if he doesn't like his circumstances, then he'll change them. He possesses honor and the ability to understand, which leads him to befriending even the most bitter of enemies, such as the Ninetales. And if we move into the abilities the Ninetales gives him, especially considering that he doesn't even need the Ninetales to match Hashirama at this point, we come to realize just how much he towers over the others. He possesses his version 1 and 2 cloak, but all of that pales in comparison to his Ninetales chakra cloak, which was weaker still than his Kurama chakra cloak, a form created by mixing both Naruto and Kurama's chakra together. But if you thought that was the end, you're mistaken. Going well beyond their limits, they break into Baryon mode, a transformation in which Naruto and Kurama turn their chakra into heavy particles, using nuclear fusion to increase their strength and ferocity to that like the sun. It's so powerful that it not only shortens the lifespan of the user, but the lifespans of anyone they touch, such as the case of Ishiki Otsutsuki, who had 3 critical days worth of time burned up in his short match. It's certain that Naruto is the strongest of them all. And that was my list of the strongest Kage in existence. I hope you enjoyed. If you agree, yay! If you disagreed, well, let us know. Kindly. You wouldn't want to make me cry, would ya? Please be respectful of the other commenters, and me. That being said, I can't wait to compare notes with you and see if my opinion changes.
Did you enjoy our video? Well, then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.